Welcome back to Movie Flix.
Today we are going to recap a 2012 drama romantic movie titled The Concubine. To escape a life of poverty, Hua Yon becomes one of the king's concubines and two men become captivated by her.
But before we begin, please consider subscribing to our channel. Now, without wasting any further time, let's begin, shall we?
The story takes place in the early days of Joseon dynasty when Prince Sungwon visits an aristocrat's home for dinner. He meets his daughter Yeon there and develops an instant attraction for her. But before he can do anything, he discovers that she is in love with Kyun-woo, the aristocrat's adoptive son. When Sung's mother once discovers that he is drawn to Yeon, she tells him to stay away from her since it will harm the reputation. Sung's mother was the previous king's concubine and is now the stepmother of the current king, who is also Sung's half-brother. The current monarch has no heirs and his wife died recently, so he asks his stepmother to locate him a new queen as soon as possible. As a result, Sung's mother requests that the aristocracy provide his daughter Yeon as a concubine for the king, but she refuses to become a concubine and flees the state one night. The next morning, however, the pair is apprehended by the guards. Yeon's father wishes him to punish for the crime, but she begs her father to spare him and agrees to work as a concubine for the king. Yeon became queen for 5 years after giving birth to a son. Sungwon comes to the palace after being absent for 5 years to see his brother the king after learning of his brother's illness. He then gives Yeon a hairpin as a token of his feelings for her. The king's condition deteriorates and he eventually dies of an unknown ailment. Yeon's father feels the king died as a result of a toxic assassination and is determined to find out the truth. But before he can act, he and his followers are inexplicably arrested at the request of Sung's mother. Soon after, Sungwon ascends to the throne and becomes the next king. His mother renames herself Regent and Queen Mother and seizes control of the royal court. Yeon and her kid have been relocated to a modest apartment that is monitored 24 hours a day. She wishes to establish that a former king was poisoned. After some wrangling, she discovers that the previous king had lunch with Sung's mother on the day he died. Sungwon visits Yeon one night and assures her that her father will be released soon. Yeon learns from him that Kun, her old lover, is working in the palace among the other workers. Sung's mother learns that his secret visit to Yeon and tells him that he can have any woman in the country except her, as Yeon remains a threat to their power. Meanwhile, Yeon visits Ko in a decade and is relieved to see him alive. She informs him of the former king's assassination and requests his assistance, but he declines and resents her for what happened to him. Kwon adds that when she fled, her father castrated her for daring to elope with his daughter. Kyon has now joined forces with Minister Yoon and the Queen's mother in order to have your father murdered for what he did to him. When Yeon learns of the execution, she begs Sungwon to halt it. Sungwon begs his mother to halt the execution, but she refuses because she wants to punish Yeon and her family for opposing the authority. Sungwon has had enough of playing the puppet king and orders Kyon to immediately halt the execution. However, Kyon defies Sung's orders and personally ensures that execution of Yeon's father takes place. Following that, the court advises that Sungwon and the Queen Mother exile Yeon and her son, but Sungwon refuses because he does not want a widow to suffer for her father's fault. He tries to communicate with Yeon since he still has affection for her, but Yeon refuses to speak with him because she blames him for her father's death. As a result, Sungwon chooses Gomoke, who was personal Yeon's maid, as a minor concubine. Sungwon learns about Hua private Yeon's habits from her and becomes excited by learning more about Yeon. The next day, Gomoke is given his own room in order to please Sungwon. Yeon, on the other hand, is still distraught by her father's death and is unsure of what to do next. Later, Hwon goes to see Sungwon while wearing the hairpin he gave her years ago in order to satisfy him and gain his favor. When Sung mother wants to learn about this, she decides to eliminate Yeon and her son as a danger. As a result, she directs Minister Yoon to assassinate Yeon and her son. Minister Yoon delegated the responsibility to Kyon, who agreed to poison Yeon and her son in order to maintain his position in the royal courtyard. Meanwhile, Gomoke devises a plan to bring Sungwon to her room. She was hesitant to become a lovely concubine at first, but she now intends to give birth to a prince and cement her place as a concubine. She even approaches Yeon and begs that she give her jewelry in order for her to look more beautiful. She wears the identical hairpin that Sungwon gave to Yeon years before. As time passes, Sungwon is pressed by his mother to father a son in order to secure their royal dynasty. Sungwon, however, is tired of being the puppet and goes to see Gomoke, who has been promoted to concubine. He becomes enraged when he notices she is wearing the hairpin he gave to Yeon. Gomoke discloses to spare her own life that Kyon-oh was the one who had a connection with Yeon before she became a concubine. Sungwon approaches Yeon, accusing her of concealing Kyon-woo as a fake merchant to the palace. He also questions her about whether Kyon-yu is the biological father of her child. Yeon, on the other hand, denies of all the claims and argues her innocence. So Sungwon takes down Kyon pants and discovers that he was castrated, establishing Yeon's innocence. Sungwon then attempts to forcefully mate with Yeon since he can no longer control his impulses, but Yeon stops him and tells him to return when he becomes a true king. Following that, Kyon-yu changes his mind and feels he is the father of Yeon's son. He recommends to Yeon that they flee the palace together and start over, but Yeon refuses, stating that she will not jeopardize her son's safety and will protect him at all costs. One day, Kyon-yu prepares the poison that will be used to execute Yeon and her son, as directed by Queen Mother and Minister Yoon. Instead, he puts the poison in Sung's restorative wand's drink in the hopes of killing him and installing Yeon as a king. Sungwon, on the other hand, refuses to drink the medical drink and instead orders Kyu-yu to do so. Kyon-yu has no choice but to drink the medical drink, which causes him to vomit blood due to the poison. Sungwon is taken aback by this and decides to save Kyo-yu in order to discover the truth. Later, he interrogates the physician and discovers that the director of medicine is Minister Yoon, who works directly under Queen Mother, raising the possibility that Queen Mother attempted to assassinate Sungmoon. Soon after, Yeon sends her kid away to a secure location, knowing that a storm is brewing in the palace. Later, she is imprisoned and accused with threatened by the Queen Mother. The Queen Mother then instructs Minister Yoon to assassinate Yeon and dispose of her. But before he can do so, Sungwon orders the royal guards to arrest Minister Yoon immediately. Meanwhile, Sungwon confronts his mother, accusing her of plotting the assassination Yeon and her son in order to steal the kingdom. The Queen Mother disputes the accusation, claiming that she genuinely cares for him. She admits to poisoning the former king in order to install Sungwon on the throne. Sungwon is terrified by the discovery because he never intended to become king and he adored his step-brother. Sungwon summons Kyon-yu and Minister Yoon to the court to determine whether they conspired to poison him. When Sungwon asked Kyeonyu who ordered him to poison the monarch, Kyeonyu lies, claiming that Queen Mother and Minister Yoon were behind the murder attempt. Sungwon is devastated by the news and orders his guard to execute all of the perpetrators. The Queen Mother, for her part, will be confined under house arrest in her quarters indefinitely. Yeon sees Kyeonyu on his way to be executed to praise him for honoring his pledge. When Kyeonyu requests that Yeon care for their son when he dies, Yeon responds that the prince is no one's kid but hers. Kyeonyu is devastated since he has given his life for Yeon and her child, who may or may not be his own. Yeon afterwards goes to see Sungwon. Yeon embraces Sung's love, and now he has become a true king, and the two mate passionately. After mating, however, Yeon stabs Sungwon with the same hairpin he gave her. The woman he adored and sacrificed all of his life for took his own life. Shortly later, the Queen Mother is assassinated as well. Yeon and her kid make their way back to the royal court. The door behind them closes as Yeon's son plays the throne. Yeon realizes she can't go back, and this is where the movie ends.
I hope you enjoyed it. As always, until next time.